itself is an aid on the bill of sale from Levi to Shimon. Okay, so now what do we do with that? So again, according to Admon, so if I come and say, that's it, then you lost anything, you signed on the shtar, you lost anything. Admon says, no, there's still another claim. You make a claim, it's easier for me to get the field back from Shimon than it was from Levi. Fine. Case 2 is Reuven, Shimon is selling the field. Shimon says, so let's call this field is field A. Shimon is selling field B. Field B. It's fine, no problem. So we'll say, off in the way, when you would sell a field, if it was a field that was next to other fields, the way you would identify the field that you were selling is by identifying the other fields all around. Right? I'm selling field B that is bordered by fields A, D, E. Shimon is selling field B. But in the document of sale, he makes preference. He says field B borders on my other field, field A. Field A. So in this case, field A is being used as a demarcation point, as a border. So right, field A, this means there's nothing sold at all. But it's being used to identify field B, which is the transaction. So now Reuven is using field A, right? Sorry, Shimon, thank you. Shimon is using field A, field A, as just to identify the border of the field that is being sold. Now, I will say, Reuven is signing on this document also. Reuven is signing on this document. So now, here's the shaila. Now, in this transaction, in this document, so when Shimon is selling field B, selling field B, does so what? So to speak, solidifying his ownership over field A, because he's using field A to identify one of the borders of field B. Reuven is claiming that this field A was originally his, signing on this document. So now both says, now what's going to happen after this is over? So now Reuven is going to want to come back and say to Shimon, by the way, field A is mine. It was stolen from me by Levi, subsequently says it's you. So Mishnah says, no. I saw Simon, La'achar, Ibn as at the end of the day, even Admon agrees, which is interesting. Even Admon agrees in this case, that once Reuven signed on this type of shtar, which used the contested field as a border for the field being sold, everyone agrees that we don't have the right to change what the field is. Okay, interesting. Let's go. Come Rabbi. Okay, let's go back to that first case. Let's go back to the first case. Let's say so. No, the truth is, I realize that with this we actually have to stay on target because the truth is, right? So the truth is, Tuesday and Wednesday topic are a little bit, and Monday, a little bit long. So we gotta stay, and we only have 45 minutes on Tuesday, right? So we're gonna be fine. Just say, so here we go. We'll say, so I'm not by advice. We'll say, now we're focusing on case number. So once again, let's just get back to case number 1. Like, Shimon purchases a field from Levi. There's a document, right? And the document that says that Levi sold the field. Shimon, one of the witnesses is Reuven. Reuven then comes after this. Tells complete. Then Reuven comes to Shimon and says, Shimon, the field is mine, Levi stole it. What? Signed on the document. So again, Chachamim say, sorry, you no longer have any claim. You signed on the document. Sorry, you were a witness. We're done. Almon says no. Reuven has a claim. Yes, I signed the document in order to get it out of Levi's hands. Your hands shouldn't be I have a better chance with you of getting back my land. Fine. Someone by says, Lo shano ela 8. That's only true. Like all of this is only true. Allah for myself, Ruben Simon, about Lucas, it's only if Ruben Simon as a witness. About Dion Lo Ruben as this is fascinating. So let's say if it's really incredible. So if Allah for myself, Ruben served as a Dion, judge, everyone agrees that he still makes the claim of theft, even though he was the judge over that. What is that going to say? Why do you need a judge in this case? Look at Rashi. Daldalim. Shehubishtan, if you were based in the Taimos, Mishpat Shtaros, Sha'idim Barim, Mishpat Sabyadam, Badayanim Kosin Shtara Dinan Naftal Kabana, Basido Sadia Hasim, Zarab Ashur. So I say, watch this. Let's say again, they come to Beis to certify document. Kiyum Shtaros. We've spoken about certification of documents once and over again. What is Kiyum Shtaros? The danger of documents. On one hand, in halacha, documents, right? When you have a signed shtar, so that's incredible. The problem is, somebody go ahead and forge, right? Can you forge a shtar? Can you forge a shtar? Sure. So there's a concept of shtar certification. What's the process of kiyum shtaros? You bring your shtar to Beis Din, right? Beis Din takes a look at it. The Beis Din brings in testimonies, or brings in the witnesses, certify that is there, that is their signature. You write a little pen pick, right? You write a little either on the document yourself or an attached document, and done. The shtar is certified. So this is incredible. So a bias is just like this. The maflokes almos and the chachamim, the first case of the shtar. It's only when Ruben signed as a witness of the transaction. If he was a diamond on the Beis Din that certified the document, that does not erode his ability to later on claim that the stolen subject. Why, Rabbi say? This is actually fascinating. I'm telling you, Rabbi Chia, ein ha'izun chosin al hashtar ela imkin karor. Aval ha'midis, aval ha'dayon chosin. Those are actually incredible. When you witness a transaction, like when you sign as an aid, because what are you signing on? What are you signing on? You're signing on the validity of the transaction. Right? That's what you're signing on. That I witness this transaction. This transaction is binding, valid, and legal. When you're a dayan with kiyum shtaros, they're going to say, what are you certifying? What are you certifying? Signatures. You are not certifying the transaction. In fact, the dayan, sometimes like kiyum shtaros, the dayanim aren't just reading what's in the documents. Like, I'm not certifying the transaction. I know you're not the transaction. Kiyum shtaros is there just simply to certify the signatures on the document itself. But it has nothing to do with it. But it's so fascinating. So fascinating. So you can have a situation of kiyum shtaros, which makes sense almost because otherwise, kiyum shtaros requires a whole certification of the transaction. So what's the point of the shtar? And what does the shtar do? The shtar, right? The agents on the shtar locks in the transaction. Kiyum shtaros certifies the signature. So this is incredible. So we'll say in a case where Reuben was a dying for kiyum shtaros. Right, so now let's play this out. Right, so Levi sells a field to Shimon, and then what happens? They drop a document, and now they want to bring the document to Beis Din for certification. Reuben is one of the dayanim on the Beis Din to certify. Right, Reuben's Beis Din certifies the document, and then after it's certified, Reuben says to Shimon, by the way, the field is stolen from me. Everyone agrees in that case. Reuben has a valid. We say Reuben has a valid claim. Saying something or stolen from you is not a claim. Right? I mean, it's a claim. What it means is Reuben now has the right to what? Pursue that claim. Right? So again, why? And everyone agrees in that case. Everyone agrees in that case. Why? Because Reuben's acting as a guy for Kim Shtaros has nothing to do with the transaction. All Reuben is doing is just saying, hey, yeah, the signatures we can say we can speak, you guys recognize the signatures, fantastic. We do, sign it up, right, and then we're done. Certified, we're done. So everyone agrees in that case because in no way erodes his claim to go ahead and pursue the stolen, right, the stolen claim, claim that the land was stolen from him. Sha'in came when he's a witness to the actual transaction, sale from Levi to Shimon. In that case, again, part of signing on a shtar is what? You are claiming the transaction itself is valid. When you say claim the transaction is valid, you can't go ahead and now claim that same person is stolen from you. Agmo says, yes, I can. The transaction was valid. In other words, yes, Levi sold to Shimon. At the end of the day, it's my own. Good. So says the Gemara. But I saw a similar outcome. So the next case the Mishnah was, I remember again, right? So same case, but let's say not same case. In this case, Shimon the purchaser, so Shimon the purchase confessed the property, call it parcel A. Shimon is selling parcel B and uses parcel A to identify the borders of parcel B. Reuben himself signs on that shtar as well, and not as well, but Reuben sells on that shtar. The Mishnah says everyone agrees that after he sells then that shtar, he no longer has the right to pursue anything that belongs to him. The parcel is there. And what that is, those show Allah. That's only true in the field of class. He says, that's for not that must similar אבל עשה המוחזק בה similar לעצמו שהיו בזה or Allah is for this. That's only true when what? When Shimon is selling the parcel to someone else. What happens if Shimon is selling the parcel to Reuben himself? Shimon is selling parcel B to Reuben. And now happens to be in that sale, Shimon uses parcel A, which is the property, as a border identification. But ultimately, in that case, even though Reuben, right, even as a concern, Reuben did not go ahead and lose out his ability to return parcel A. Why? The Amar, even of we say if I would not agree to this, they'll have a masculine issue. Then ultimately again, Shimon would not sell the property. In other words, it was like the concern of the here is that if Shimon knows that Reuben is going to be claiming parcel A, he's going to be reticent to what? Sell a parcel. So Shimon, right, Reuben wants to buy parcel B. If I lodge my claim now, then I'm not going to get parcel B. And certainly, again, leaving aside parcel A. So the Gemara says, "Not use the telling." So what should Reuben have done? We violated the name of Moda. So maybe Reuben could have done is that before he purchases parcel B from Shimon. Put aside the risk. So you understand this one. That's very nice. I'm purchasing parcel B from Shimon. In the transaction, Shimon is saying that parcel B, right, orders on Shimon's other parcel. As for parcel A. I just want to tell you, like a sidebar. I'll tell you guys. You might also is don't think about saying anything now. And that thing is transaction. Maybe that's what you should say. Make them go, not fall. Right? Let him go. Someone says, yeah, that'll work really well. Chavra is late. Chavra is late. This is good. Your friend has a friend. The friend of your friend has a friend. Which I will say is another way of saying, don't rely on anyone's confidentiality. Right? So the nice again, if Reuben says something so that people can confidence, so the witnesses, they're going to say something, and what's going to happen? It's going to cause the whole transaction possibly to fall into jeopardy. Good. The Gemara says as follows. So Chavra is like, who saw similar right? So let's say, so listen to this. In this case, so the case over here is, so let's go back. So let's say, so this is just a unique case over here. So remember, let's go back. The Mishnah said that in a case where Reuben is now signed on a shtar. Signed, right, is a witness to a document where Shimon is selling parcel B to another party, and in parcel B, he's using parcel A, the contested parcel, as one of the borders. And Reuben signs on that document. Reuben gives up his right to further to any more claim parcel A. That's only true. Now Abai gives a qualification. That's true if Shimon was selling it to another party. But if Shimon was selling it to Reuben himself, so Reuben doesn't object to the use of parcel A as a border. That's because Reuben doesn't want to call for jeopardy the whole transaction. Fine. So I go back to the original case. So that's also in the office. So let's go back to the Mishnah's original case. Right? So the Mishnah's original case. So Allah I say now, the Reuben is paid on the shtar where Shimon is selling parcel B using parcel A as its border. So what happens? Here are the shekels. So I say after the transaction happens, now what happens? So Reuben claims, by the way, parcel A is mine. Parcel A is mine. But what happens? Shekel. Then he died. Reuben died. I say Reuben died. This story is close. Right? Reuben died after raising the objection for the ownership of parcel A. Okay. Yeah. What happens? The oath has to stop. So now again, so after Reuben passed away, right? Either Reuben was religious beforehand, or the Beis appointed an apotropos. Now there's an executor of Reuben's estate. Okay, so Asa Apotropos coming back, buying the apotropos came before buying. Amalei saw similar. So this is now what happens. The apotropos is coming. Well, why is he coming? The apotropos is saying, listen, before Reuben died, Reuben claimed that your faith belongs to him. So the apotropos says, I am coming to follow up on that claim. I'm coming to follow up on that claim. Okay, so Abai says, listen, Abai says, there's no claim. Listen, Krishna. I saw similar Akkad, even as a result. We already learned this case. Reuben signed onto this document where Shimon used field A as a border identification for field B. And the Mishnah says, once you do that, you go ahead and relinquish all of your rights. Nothing more to talk about. To which the apotropos says, you're right, but he other son yes Mikhaim other time the Amar Alam Akarasisi. Very interesting. So I will say, so the apotropos says, Reuben is still alive, but Reuben would say yes. I agree. I signed a document where Reuben used field A as a border for field B. It's really the only thing I was agreeing to was that perhaps Shimon owns a narrow strip of field A. A narrow strip of field B. Okay. That's what he owned. That's what he earned. But anyway, Shadur Ka'amis, so treating that's a good color. Rabbi Rothschild is how the Aman's color up. And I see the part. So the Aman. So there's a actually very interesting. Very interesting. That the claim over here is that Allah right? That if I go ahead, right? Rabbi Rothschild says, let's say I sold you a field, right? The field is mine, and the only thing I sold you in that field was the narrow strip. Such a claim could actually be believed. So the Gemara supposed to see what's happening over here. In other words, Reuben signed on this document that where Shimon was selling the field to another party, Shimon was selling field B. The field B was sold with a border identification of field A. Reuben signed on it. Reuben signed on it. Transaction happened. Reuben said, by the way, field A is mine. It's stolen from me by Levi. After that, Reuben died. Apotropos comes around and tries to sign up the affairs of the state. He comes to a buyer, and the Apotropos listens. Reuben claimed this thing, field was his. Abai says, that's fine. Field A was his. Ben says, that's fine, but it's a Mishnah. Right? Reuben signed on that document. He signed that document using field A as a border. Field B, he had to give it all rights to the field. To which the Apotropos says, no, perhaps if he was here, we're paying all Shimon really owned in that field It's just a narrow strip. That's what he was identifying as the border. Which Abai says that's a good payment. But ultimately again, you still should have to go ahead. So in other words, now Abai says the apotropos, even if that's a good claim, that's fine, but you still have to leave in Shimon's possession a narrow strip. So listen, here's the problem. On that narrow strip, there was a line of palm trees. That narrow border strip, pretty valuable. So the Gemara says. So we have a kavod avun yasitayim havitorim va'amar kazarti v'lakakti v'neder. This is great. Yeah, it's still Rabbi by the way. Rabbi says, if giving was allowed, he claims why it's true that I sold that border strip back to Shimon. I then subsequently repurchased it. Rabbi says, saying good. So let's say ultimately again we're going to claim I sold it repurchased it with release. But let's say the reason that is because this is actually says Pesha Asar or Pesha Hitya. In other words, let's say the king's the verse look at actually Naaman. Here's the case, just take the case in its totality. Naaman, Pesha Asar Pesha Hitya. So the Akashish Eden Shaisa Shalom. So let's say the king says the fear is there. Remember, Shimon sold the field, Lady sold the field for Shimon. And then again, it gets more complicated. So now what happens? So now you have Ruvain, sorry. Then you have Shimon. Here we go. You have lady selling the field to Shimon. Field A. Okay, fine. Now what happens? Shimon sells field B to another party. But in that transaction, he uses field A as a border identification. Ruvain signs on that shtar, that bill of sale that Shimon makes to another party of field B. Afterwards, what happens? Shimon, so Ruvain says, field A is mine. It was stolen from me by Levi and sold to you, Shimon. So remember again, speaking halach in the Mishnah, we don't believe you. We don't believe you. But we'll say in this case, it's becoming a bit more complicated. In this case, what happens is Ruvain goes ahead and claims the field is stolen. And not only that, Ruvain brings witnesses. That's Rashi saying in the blank over here. He brings witnesses. That will say, after he goes in and brings witnesses, what happens? He dies. Okay, now what happens? Apostropis comes to Abai. Apostropis says, listen, I'm here to help him with this place. Abai says, there is no claim. It's a Mishnah. Ruvain signed on the document. Apostropis says, but he has Aegis. Abai says, this is Paul says it. Essentially, the Aegis is negated in the face of rocks. Ruvain's signature. In other words, once Ruvain signs on that document, he effectively signs on his rights. Of course, the Apostropis says, no. What you understand is he actually went ahead and sold back, right? He sold to Shimon a strip of land. Okay. So now what you're telling me is when Ruvain signed the document, he wasn't giving his rights to the rest of the field. What was he acknowledging? That Shimon owns a strip of land of field A that borders on field B, but that in no way he's giving his rights to the rest of field A. That's good. But Abai says, okay, that's fine, so you can pursue your claim on the rest of field A. But what? But you have to go ahead and at least leave in Shimon's possession what? The strip of land. To which Apostropis says, but 1 second. He's going to the story. Ruvain walks back the strip of land from Shimon. He brought it back. To which Abai says, which you're earlier saying, good, why? Because they will say, this is the Paisha, so I'm not sure why. The only way we knew about the sale was how? Just 3 liters, right? In other words, right from here, we didn't know about the sale. Without the sale, all you would have is what? Is Abe was saying that the price of the field was stolen from Reuben. So now Reuben, so to speak, was Apotropos telling us that a sale happened of the script. Now Reuben's further clarifying and telling us after the sale occurred, Reuben bought it back from Shimon. It's a Pesha, also Pesha, horrific case, in which case Reuben slash the Apotropos should be believed. To way that Reuben, it turns out that Reuben should really walk the able to offer, assuming he could prove his claim, why should really be able to walk away with the field in its entirety, including the strip of prophecies. Rabbi is also what's taken from the story. Rabbi, I man to Mocha Apotropa, Mokim Ki Had Yagala Africa, this was the entire takeaway is you got to get an Apotropas like this. Right, Jay? I would say this is you gotta surround yourself with good people. Like this Apotropas Rabbi says knew exactly what he was doing. Good. So let's say, so for our purposes, Allah for the so how do we possibly? So I said this is a complicated case. That is a very complicated case. Remember again, we'll say what we have essentially embedded in this case is a couple of different cases. Just because I'm just going to tell you quickly. Rama Paskins, this is in Hilchos Toin B'Nitan, Perek Tes Zayin, Halachas Aleph and Beis. We're not going to have time for everything. I'm going to leave out the Kalam case. It's going to give you the Mishnah. Here it is. Reuben Shemach the Shimon Saga. Reuben sold the field to Shimon. V'haya Levi Me'edi Ashta. Now I'm changing the name. I'm going to keep it like we had it, right? So let's say, Levi sold the field to Shimon, and Reuben was one of the witnesses on the shtar. And what happens? Subsequently, right? Reuben claims after the transaction occurs. Reuben claims that what? That Allah Kalamaisa, Levi stole it from me. Ain Shonim. The Rambam passes like that. No. Even though you remember that you're going to claim, yes, I signed on it because I wanted it to go from Levi to Shimon because I feel a better sense when I steal it back from Shimon and from Levi. The Rambam says, case closed. Allah for myself. There's absolutely nothing to talk about once you are party to the transaction. Like once you are a witness on that shtar, you have effectively ceded and yielded any rights that you have to bring that field as well. However, the Rambam says there's even acting as a dyer to shtaris, he does not yield or cede any future rights. Again, we're back to this distinction of the Gemara. When Allah myself, an aid certifies the transaction. A jar when someone certifies signature. Says almost like Allah myself, don't trust like Al-Bora was mutual trust like that. There's much more. Again, both those times Nikan, Hayak Kazain, Halachas, Aliyah, and Days. Take a look at it after your own Allah, how interesting that is, but that's the Allah myself. Good. Mishnah, quickly. Misha, Allah Medina Sayan, is the Zaryak Sadeo. Okay, it just gets better. This is the case. And also, by the way, you ask yourself, what does this have to do with Subas? Right, that's answer number one. And that's answer number one. So remember again, the reason, just to be in all seriousness, the reason why we're doing this is because remember, the way this kind of started off, there were the rulings of Admon and Hanan. And remember again, it started off with a discussion about Mizonos. That's what Tzuvas. Now, let's say we're just going through all of their rulings. Watch this great case. Misha, Allah, so we'll say, watch this case. Reuben goes overseas. Now, Reuben owns a field. Now, they'll say, interestingly enough, the case over here is Reuben's field is land grabbed, which means that the only way he was ever able to get into Silver's house, he had a right of way. He had a right of way with someone. So what happened? So Misha, so let's say, now Estefan comes back, he's been away for a while, so he can't remember the right of way. Where is my right of way to get into my field? And of course, as you can imagine, none of the neighbors are being threatened. Right? No, because obviously, no one wants to give up that. No one wants to give up that, right? So, Admon Omer, Yelech Loves the Tzara. Admon says, look, since we have to use logic, figure out what is the shortest way to get into this field, and let's assume that was the previously established right of way. The Chum say no. You have a choice. You have a choice. Either go ahead and pay top dollar, whoever's willing to negotiate with you, or fly. Or fly. Right, in other words, right, okay, right, or fly. Figure out a way to fly. So again, this is actually interesting. The Chum say, listen, Ruben, you went overseas, you lost your information. The burden is on you, so pretty much, again, no one has to do anything for you, so you're going to have to figure out a way to negotiate the top dollar right of pass. So my time is Rabban, Shabbat Ka'an. I understand. What's the logic of the Rabban? It's able to say, the reason why the Rabban's position doesn't seem to make sense is, if there's one thing you know, it's that what? Ruben had a right of way. Had a right of way. Take this, I'll tell you, the right of way, even today.
Yo, what's up, bro?
How you living, Ken? Living the dream. How are you, big dog? Living the dream. How are you, big dog?
I love you, baby.
Dude, I know who that is. How you living, big man? You living, big man? Bien, me too. Dog, you're the guy from where, dog? You're from Kick, right? You're from Kick, right?
So just assume that for the what's logical about it, or you go around and that's this.
Are you from Kick?
Yes.
I know exactly who you are. Hey, we should do an interview.
There's 4 different people. So we'll say, what's the problem? The problem is if you imagine it,
We should do an interview.
And then he goes to number 1.
Yo, El Viejo Esteban, let's do an interview.
It's fine, right away through here.
Bro, I don't like streaming and Kick.
Why don't you like streaming on Kick?
Number 2, no, man. You're either 3, 4.
Yes.
So we'll say, the problem is,
Okay, why don't you like streaming on Kick?
to deflect it to the other. This is one of these pieces.
I know who you are.
You know right away
I'll look you up
exists.
right now.
But
I know
we
who you are.
can't figure out
You're a big deal. You're a big You're a big deal.
And again, why does
You're always on the
that make the
I know who you are. You're always on the front page.
shortest
I know
right
who
of way?
you are. You're always on the front page.
Very quickly. Arba the Asr
Yo. I'm looking you up right now.
For that matter, 4 people who bought their field from one person. Everyone feels exactly the same.
Mira, lo puse paró, lo cachondito, llamándome ahora. Ay, qué perrucha eres.
Gemara says,
How have you been?
Where does my
How have you been?
The Asi Mikvah Arba. So watch this. Let's say now all 4 of the landlocked fields, or the landlocked
Nosotros antes hablábamos con el traductor, se le agarraba y traducía lo que buscaba y después hablábamos así.
ground fields are owned by one person, and we'll say what? Bought it from 4 individual owners. In this case over here, we'll call him Shimon. Shimon now owns the 4 fields, which is Shimon bought it from 4 independent people. Watch this. So I know listen. Shimon.
Pura, Marica, como que eres culo enfermo, Marica, como que eres culo enfermo, brother.
I owe it to give it to you. There's this guy. I want to say this. Shimon can say 3 minutes like this. Shatat. If you're going to be quiet, be quiet. If you're going to make comments for me, so this is Shimon can say to Ruben, here's the deal. If you want to negotiate, I'm going to return the land to the previous 4 owners. It's going to be owned by 4 independent people, and then the one person, Ruben will never be able to get right away. Why? Because each of us want to negotiate. You can negotiate. But if you're going to claim that my by something's owed to me, I'll simply go ahead and incredible. So the Gemara says. So I'm sorry. Who's done with it? Tell us quickly. You finish off the. Who's done with it? A guy, Ruben, is about to die. Right before he dies, he says, I want my brother to inherit the palm tree. He's giving a palm tree to his brother. Also, Yasmin, saying, So Reuben dies, and the sons went ahead and divided up the estate, but didn't give the country to the daughter. אז יוסף קודם, וחסי לא יאבד את זכרו. עכשיו יוסף אומר, and you must listen, that Yosef wanted to say what I said, and this is the Mishnah, why Rakhanan, because Rona wanted to go ahead and come to Rakhanan, right? And each son could say what? Each one could say what? Oh, not from my portion, from his portion, from his one, from his portion. I'm going to have my it's not a good comparison. Hassan Kachad Kachad Natimat here. Kachad Diklo Gavayu Chava. So let's listen to this. Here's the difference. So let's say the piece of the right of way really only does exist on one field. When it comes to the daughter's right to a country, that is a right that involves all of their inheritance portions. So therefore, my Takanayu, what should we do? What they should do is give her a palm tree, and then redivide the estate minus the palm tree. That's what should happen. Okay, we'll say very quickly. I'm sorry, just give me a little 1 minute and we'll stop. Actually, I was like, we'll stop over here for today. We'll just pick up with this very last piece of work. I tried. Okay, we'll say Shkoyach again. Great week ahead of us. And there's Hashem. Shkoyach. All right, I don't know the good idea. All right, now I say good morning, let us begin. Hashem, a great visit us to enter into our last week of Masechus Sudas. I want to go ahead and begin by thanking all of our sponsors for this ministry. Thank our Kamatora sponsors for the month of Tishrei, to thank Dr. Linda Weinberg, Seth, and the Grant Studio, Nina, and lovely night and dedicating the short response to lovely memory of their husband, father, and reader, Dr. Paul Weinberg, Eretz Moshe Ben Adrian Study. Thank Ayala for his time dedicating the shiur response to the course of Rabbi Rothschild, so Shudamis Pass Susha, and the people that is first of all of our fields in this family. I'll be the famous Avram Weissman, the version of the other grandmothers of his grandfather, Abraham Ben Aaron, Tzvi and Shimon Shir, honor of Yehuda and Elliot Shmuel Shir Pepper, in honor of Ari Lerner, and all who does to the church. Incredible, beautiful. Also, to thank our Dr. Lilly sponsors for today. Honor of Andrea Stellis, in honor of the Bas Mitzvah of his granddaughter, Kila Rosenblum, Row, the Torah and good souls to the entire family and all of the practice. Beautiful, beautiful. Also, with that, let us begin very, very exciting. First of all, very exciting to in general, and also to recognize that it's always beautiful when there's like this confluence of events. How it is our finishing in the Sefta, Onrush Kodesh. So we're ending things, beginning things, closing out Kodesh Tishrei, beginning Teshuvah, beginning Teshuvah, and Yom Hashem, the second Sefta. So let's begin. Today's daf is Profess 109. We are picking up in Yom Hashem on the bottom of Profess in days 108. 108. We really left off. I don't know. Yeah, we left off yesterday. So the Mishnah says as follows: "Haposik ba'os b'chassid." It's a very interesting case. Someone promises money to his son-in-law. An age-old story. It's an age-old story, right? So someone promises money to his son-in-law. Now, I said in this particular case, what's unfolding over here is like this. Essentially, he's talking about a child. So imagine for a moment that Reuben is marrying Rachel. Rachel's father promises Reuben some amount of money. And what happens? Ukashav Noah's Haraga. And then the father-in-law extends his foot. So also, what does it mean, extends his foot? So again, extends his foot means the father-in-law doesn't pay. Father doesn't pay. So Rachel's father doesn't pay the dowry. Now look at actually, remember, Ukashav Noah's Haraga. Lashon Zayon Amar Ve'esh She'enu Chashtek Varav Kol Tit Sha'al Dabi Rabbi. This Talmudic discussion of extending your foot, essentially, I'm giving you nothing. Take the dirt that's on my shoe. Take the dirt. Now, in general, what this sounds like is the father-in-law is intentionally not giving his son-in-law the money. But the case doesn't have to be set up that way. That's just the way that's what the Mishnah is saying. Suppose you know this, Rago, here, take the dirt that's on my foot, I'm not giving you any money. Don't be curious. Father-in-law promised money, and now is not delivering. So I'll say, now the problem we're in is what? Kedushin has already taken place. Kedushin has already taken place. So Reuben is already Mekadosh Rachel. Yisrael has not yet been done. Father-in-law indicates that whatever the situation is, he will not pay the money. That's not what happened for the best. Patient actually happened in Yosha. The Hachamim say, ultimately again, literally she has to sit there until her marriage goes away, which means she's stuck. Rachel's stuck. That, in other words, at this point in time, the control is in Reuben's hands, and either he can make a choice to marry her, right, or ultimately just wait and do nothing until her father pays back. After all, again, there was an agreement. That was made. Rachel's father is not honoring the agreement. So again, moving the world forward, holding pattern of those following up his duties. Abner says, the whole is Rachel should say to Reuben, אני פסקתי לעצמי, should actually have the notion. So Amnon says like this, Rachel could say to Reuben, listen, I, Rachel, was not promised to money. I thought was promised to money. Then you can hold your own life. If you can hold your own life, then you can essentially, hold me in this marriage until either I pay you or until I pay you. But again, Hashav, Sha'aba Pasach, trying to hold the assets, Okinos, Okos. And she says, what do you want from me? I have a chance. So you're going to hold me accountable, you're going to punish me for my father's actions. So you didn't marry me, rightly so. What do you want from me? What do you want from me? Someone says, I know, but well, I need to get Amnon. When says, I think Amnon is correct. So therefore, I say, fundamental approach. Once again, just keep the case. So Rachel's going to get married to Reuben. Rachel's father promises Reuben $10,000. Right? That's the agreement. That's the dowry. Reuben does Kedusha. Now, father-in-law says, I'm not giving you. I can't give you, I won't give you, whatever it is. But this, he's not giving. So now, Hachamim say, Reuben has every right to essentially hold Rachel in this marriage until her father decides to pay. Her father decides to pay, and ultimately if he doesn't pay, so then Rachel's going to grow old in a state of Kedushin. Admon says that's not right. It's not right. Like ultimately, again, as I said, even the Hachamim are not necessarily saying it's right. They're kind of just saying it's legal. Because this is technically a legal request that he has. That's his father-in-law's time. So Rachel says that's so Admon says that Rachel can say to her husband, that's not right. I didn't enter into this agreement with you. My father did. Why are you punishing me for the default of my father? Listen, don't keep me in limbo. Either marry me or divorce me. Rachel knows that guy. I think Allah follows him. Let's go. So let's listen to what Yaitana. Our Mishnah. does not reflect the view of the following time. I say which time? We don't know that. It's a fascinating case. This time, I'm Rabbi Yossi Rabbi Huda, no Yachliku Adnon B'Chachamim Ala Pesek Ma'os Lefasna. Ukasha V'as Haragas, Sheyachol Mitzvi Shetomar Abba Hasak Alai, Ma Ani Yachol La'asos. So that's very interesting. A different case over here. In this case, they're quoting the same case. But in this case, Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Yehuda posits that everyone agrees in a case where the father defaulted on the agreement he made that Reuben can't hold Rachel hostage in this marriage. That Rachel has every right to say, I didn't default, either marry me or divorce me, but don't keep me in this state. Sa'amada. So Laura has an focus on the right? Ashakoske he alatzma. Oh, I will say in the Bryce's version, when the father defaulted, everyone agrees that women can't hold Rachel. I just everyone is going to agree that on a conceptual level, a man should never hate his wife in his marriage. Right? That's never something that Chazal wants. Why are they so created the system of in a way which seems to give the husband much more power, sometimes even absolute power? I don't know. That's a question that we're going to ask. I have to ask that question. And Yanavi will come. Aaron was going to ask why the halachos seem to be heavily slanted to give the man the power. But again, this is a legal discussion. So legal discussions sometimes do not enter into the arena of what is right. Right? We all know this that we teach us to our kids. Just because something is mutter, right? Just because it's permissible does not mean it should be done. So again, we're talking about what's permissible. Right? So I'm say again, it's permissible for him to use the marriage as leverage to go ahead and extract money from his father. It's legal. It's legal. Is it right? Is it right? It's not right. Of course it's not right. So it's just important to understand that. So I know everyone does, but sometimes it's just like guys who get older, especially you know that even when everyone knows something, it's still something to say. I don't know if somebody is just extends, we're all losing. This has to dissolve a marriage. That should never ever be used as leverage. That should never be used as a mechanism as a tool to extract something that a husband, right? It's not what Chazal, it's not what Baruch wants, it's not what Chazal wants. And the truth is, nothing good ever comes of hurting another human being, and nothing good ever comes by using enough as a means of expression. Okay, so back to our so again, so the Maisa, Raisa has a different view on this, right? So in the Raisa's version, that Chachamim and Ad known both agrees that what? That Allah for the Maisa, where it was the father who made the financial arrangement with Ruvain, and that the father defaults, again, default doesn't pay whatever it is. So everyone agrees, and from the Yehuda, that Allah for the Maisa, Rachel says to Ruvain, you're marrying a Christmas, but you cannot keep doing this in the first place. So what's the machlokas? What's the machlokas? What happens if Rachel promised Ruvain money? Right, so before they do Kiddushin, Rachel says to Ruvain, listen, you Mekadosh me, and if you're Mekadosh me, I'm going to give you $10,000. Okay, so now what happens? Ruvain's Mekadosh Rachel, and then what happens? Rachel doesn't pay. Won't pay, can't pay, doesn't pay. So let's say, watch this. Shacham becomes says we should actually have a Reisha. The Chachamim say, listen, Rachel, any promise, down with the commitment. Even if that's the tell you if you see what you're doing, I can tell you figure this out. So you can go into a whole new power over here. And for you, Rachel, figure out how to satisfy the obligation you are given. Admon says, the holy Shetomar, just listen to this, Admon says, so what can she say in this case? This is great. The holy Shetomar, Kisura and Sha'abon say. She says, no. When I said, I'm going to give you $10,000, I figured the same bank that has been bankloading my life up until this point in time right? It's incredible. No credit limits, right? No pre-qualifications, nothing. I figured the same bank that was taking care of me my entire life is going to take care of me now. So she said, I know I said that I was going to pay you. But again, I automatically assumed that it was my father who was going to go out and pay for this thing now. بعشر شيء أبنسين alike, مع النقل الأساس أي كنوز أو الدار. So she says, what do you want from me? What do you want from me? I guess, in other words, what Rachel says, I'm not purposely difficult every day. I never had the money to back up this man, right? I never had the money to back up this man. It was always going to be my father. Now my father doesn't want to pay. Pay, don't hold me hostage in this relationship. Either marry me or divorce me. So I was like, so I just want to point out what you read. So you learned that explaining that there's two versions of this Machlokes. In our Mishnah's version, right? The Machlokes case is where the father of the bride, the father of Rachel promised and then doesn't pay. Chachamim say, okay, Reuben can wait, Reuben can do nothing, Reuben the holding pattern until the Shtar pays up. Right? Admon says she could say to him, this is not my fault, either divorce me or marry me, but don't go and keep me in this holding state. Right? Race now says, no, in that case when the father defaults, everyone agrees that Rachel could tell Reuben either divorce me or marry me, is that in what's the Machlokes case? Rachel promises the money. So the Chachamim say, listen, Rachel, you made a promise. Make good on the promise. You don't go on the promise. Reuben has no obligation towards you. You go into a holding pattern. Admon says, no. When Rachel says, I made the promise, I'm giving my father. I was relying on my father. So ultimately, don't hold it against me. Marry me or divorce me. Incredible. I'm going to go. And the Rabbi says, and if I say the Bryce also, I'm going to go and he has to be Admon. Again, in the Bryce, you have to agree with Tana, let's analyze this. When is this so? When is this so? Says the Gemara. Dola. I'm not perfect. Let's say when is all of this said, right? Exclusively the right. So everything on the don't care. But with a dependal, with a minor, we will force him. We will force him. The Gemara says, force who? Force who to do what? If ultimately at the end of the day we come out forcing the father to pay off, so they'll say it makes much more sense to force the father in a case of the Dola than it does to force him in a case of the Ketana. Why? Because if we're talking about a case with the Ketana, promised money, right? Not always promised money to Ruben. What's the Allah that you wait on that promise? Not there. Right? It wasn't meaningless. So if you're going to be talking about a case where you're forcing the father to pay out, it makes more sense to force the father to pay up in a case where the Dola daughter made a commitment. So the guy said, you may want to they play by it. Ella Amalava hoping the Baal and the Rabbi says, no. What it means is you force the husband to give it back. So it's like, Allah when we're talking about a case of the Kitana, so the husband works at the Kitana, and the commitment of the Kitana, ultimately again at that point. If Allah for the case of the Kitana, will force the husband to give it back. We'll see how that plays out in the Rambam. Some of these Come back and let's finish this. I'll go back to the Rambam. So Amar Rabbi Yitzchak ben Elazar Mishra the Pisgah. Come up and Shalom Gamliel Lo and Yesterday Adon. So we'll say now we're going back to the Mishnah. Any time that you find that Rabbi Gamliel says, right? Any place where you find that Rabbi Gamliel said Allah follows Hamon, Allah follows him. The Allah thing he follows. Already Rabbi Rothschild. You look at Brisa. Is that true? Brisa or just the Mishnah? In other words, now we're saying whenever Rabbi Gamliel says the halacha follows Admon, the halacha follows Admon. So is that true just in a Mishnah? And the Brisa as well. Did I say just in a Mishnah? This is what I'm saying. I said any place means what? A Mishnah or a Brisa. Any time that Gamliel says the halacha follows Admon, the halacha follows Admon. Incredible. I'm going to say on the stays on halacha Yotze right? Ultimately, so now what we're saying is in the Rabbi, in the two situations, ultimately again, where based on Shabbat Hanan Yosebo, right? The Yochanan ben Zakkai said in Halacha Balas Hanan, Halacha Balas Hanan, Shiva Judge, Admon in Halacha Yosebo, but ultimately again, the 7 cases where Admon said the halacha. And Rabbi Gamliel said that the halacha like Admon, the halacha does not follow Admon. So that's kind of what it is. Even after Admon. Shnei dvarim shayach and halacha also, if you don't say both, there's an English like this, the two halachas that Hanan swapped out, and ultimately again, Yosef or those who classify Hanan, halacha follows them. The Shnei dvarim shayach Admon, in halacha Yosef, and if Yosef goes, the 7 cases that are brought up in the name of Admon, the halacha neither follows Admon, nor like the ones who classify like Admon. I don't know if these facts are allowed to this year. And after the Shomer Rabbi Gamliel, Ron answered the Admon halacha Yosef. We just said before, that anytime that Rabbi Gamliel said, I see the words of Admon correct, that the halacha follows Rabbi Gamliel, and the halacha follows Admon, and those who classify the halacha is going to be said. Please don't Shana Hanan halacha Yosef. In the two situations where Hanan said, halacha follows him, and those discussing like him, just as I have said, Shimon Bar Shana Admon, ain't a halacha Yosef. There was like the 7 cases where Admon brought down his halacha. Halacha does not follow him. So the Gemara says, the answer ain't a halacha Yosef, and halacha doesn't follow those who quote him. Help him also, halacha B'kumi. It sounds like it was just Admon by himself. That halacha would follow him. Or if you talk about it, because any sort of these cases, that's not like all these mishnahs. There is Admon stating halacha. Rabbi Gamliel weighing in that halacha follows halacha great sefer. The one else is discussing the distinction between when Admon says a halacha himself versus when you have Rabbi Gamliel coming along and saying, oh, the halacha follows it. The Hamar of Yitzchak ben Elazar was saying this year. I'm not going to show Rabbi Gamliel Ron after the halacha himself. But we just said remember whenever Rabbi Gamliel says, I see the words of Admon to be correct, that the halacha follows it. So the largest Amr is no Amaro. It sounds like the halacha only follows Admon when Rabbi Gamliel voices his support. But if Rabbi Gamliel doesn't voice his support, then the halacha won't follow Admon. Halacha is going to say, they come Shama Hanan halacha Yosef Yosef. Everything is to say. In the two situations, we see things that Hanan says that the halacha follows. Two cases where Hanan quoted the halacha, Yosef the others supported him, both of them halacha follows. Shiva's dvarim, Shama Admon, Yishne Shalach Yosef Yosef, Yishne Shein Halach Yosef, Elok Yosef. The first is by Admon, there are some situations where halacha and halacha don't follow him. Others find that the halacha will only follow him when he's quoting in the name of others. From that, the Rabbi Gamliel, Ron is the Admon, halacha also inaccurate. There isn't anything that the Gamliel said that halacha follows Admon, the halacha follows Admon, not necessarily in the other cases of Admon. So the Gemara essentially is trying to go back and forth, trying to figure out do we find a principle that can apply to the Yidden of Admon and Hanan. As I said, we're going to see the halacha and also there's no overarching principle. In fact, each of these cases are reacting independently. As we're going to see in the Torah. So Rabbi said, halacha l'maisa, let's close out the sibra. How do we prosper? This is really a great case. Money's promised, and what happened? Money's not paid. Now the only problem is, at the time of default, what's the status of the marriage? The status of marriage? Kedushin has already been done. Now we have a problem. So everyone's saying, if you default, therefore Kedushin fine. So then what? Don't get married, right? Everybody go home. That's it. The problem we have over here is the default is after Kedushin before the sin. Furthermore, 2 cases of default. What are the 3 cases of default? Case A, father default. Case B, brother, daughter, wife default. We'll say maflokas, avon, tachadin. Then there's a further maflokas, Mishnah and the Brisa as to whether maflokas is that. So that's how we really go. Rama Bastos, both T-shirts, Barak of Gimel, Aloha Tes Sai. The rest is all. I guess it's supposed to ask me. I was supposed to around, but not to ship it all. So this is only going to sit around, but it's not. In general, the Gareth of the Rambam is that the Rambam's formulation of halacha is definitely much truer to the text of the Gemara. So, if you're just trying to establish halacha l'maisa from the Gemara, the Lashon of the Rambam often tethers you to the sugya much more, whereas the Shulchan Aruch already is a distilled version of the halacha. So again, the bottom line is saying the same thing. But listen to what the Rambam says. Here we go. Great case. Aposek goes to Pasto. So this is great. So here's how the Shulchan says that case. Right? So Rachel, so what happens? Rachel's going to marry Ruben. Rachel's father was called Yaakov. Right? Rachel's father commits $10,000 to Rachel's husband to Ruben. The halacha of the Medina of Paris. The father revoked it. Sorry? Another place. It goes like only he know about, and we don't have Saki Alatzmi. Ma'an Yitzhak, the Lasos, O Klinos Kolon Dunya, O Patrin Bigat. So those says, number one, we constantly like Adnan in the Mishnah. When it was the father who defaulted, Rachel says to her husband, listen, I didn't either divorce me or marry me. Right? But don't keep me over. So we'll say that's halach and one, like Amr the Mishnah. Aval, because Alatzma, אלא ידע, הרי זה יושבת עד שתמצא מה שפסקה או עד שפסקה. So that's an interesting halach l'maisa. He passed me like the coming in the dry season. If she is the one who made the commitment, then ultimately she has to figure out a way to honor it. And he has no obligation to do anything until she figures out how to honor this commitment. Remember again, this is where she made the commitment. Remember, Admon's house for her. Remember again, what was Admon's house for her? What was that for her? I didn't promise. I know it was me, and I'm an extension of my father, right? So when I said, I promise you, to my father, so when I'm not casting like the coming to the place. This means mainly that when she makes the commitment, Rachel herself makes the commitment to Ruben, and then defaults, Ruben can keep the whole pattern of tradition of this comes up with somebody. And ultimately, again, doesn't have to be with married or once again, this is the legal rule. Moral and ethical should a man ever be a woman in a relationship over money? Absolutely not. Again, if she says give me more time, I'm happy to go and try to figure out that's fine. She wants the time. But once again, this is the legal ruling, not the more ethical or just as Allah for myself, because let's have the Mishnah, therefore again, a father's defaults, Ruben can't hold Rachel in a relationship. If Rachel defaults, he has the ability to go into all the patterns of his property. Mishnah will say, very interesting case. Allah said that it was it's Rashi, the background. Let's take a look at Rashi. First Rashi in the Mishnah. So let's say in the short lines of Rashi, 2, 4, 6, 7 lines into the short lines. Rashi says, watch this. This is fascinating. Ruven ma'arer al sadash of Yad Shimon. So let's say, so here's the case. Shimon has a field. Ruven is claiming the field really belongs to me. This was stolen from me, and you bought it. You bought it from me. Now again, he's not accusing Shimon of being complicit in the death. He's just saying, Shimon, you think you're in the field is really long. Okay, fine. Now watch this. Within the Hara said, Shimon, but my lady Shemach on the top doesn't know. I guess he was the case. Right? You got Ruven, Shimon, and Levi. Shimon is in current possession of a field that he bought from Levi. Levi sold Shimon a field. Ruben says, Shimon, that field you have, that's my field. That's my field. Levi stole it from me and sold it to you. Okay. Here's the wrinkle. The Mishnah says, Basar means is that when Levi sold the field to Shimon, he drew up a document, and one of the witnesses on the bill of sale is Ruben. So Ruben is a witness on the sale document from Levi to Shimon, and now Ruben is one of the witnesses says to Shimon, father of the field is stolen. So I'll say, so now obviously, right, what's going on exactly? Okay, so Ruben is claiming, so Shimon, the field you got from Levi is really stolen from me and sold it to you. And now you look at the report and you see that Reuben himself is one of the witnesses on the bill of sale from Levi to Shimon. What's the halacha? Admon Omer, almost says it's not a problem. You say to Reuben, so obviously we ask Reuben, I understand. If Levi sold the field to you, then why would you agree to sign Shtar? Why would you agree to sell the bill of sale? Almon says there's a perfect answer for this. Shini Noachi, Harisha Kasha Hamani. So let's listen to this. Because Reuben could say, listen, Levi is a gazda, right? Levi is a thief, right? Levi is a strong guy. I knew I never had any chance of getting my kid back from Levi. But Shimon, I know you. You're a reasonable guy. You're a reasonable guy. So I figured if I could get the field away from Levi to you, Shimon, now I have a better chance of getting back my stolen field. That's why I agreed to sign on the bill of sale so I could get it out of Levi's hands into your hands. Incredible. Incredible. But also, by the way, reality TV. So I'm just saying, like, this is so great. This is incredible. So listen to this. The Chum say, no, cut it out. Even as if you so. Well, what are you talking about? Reuven, again, Reuven, if you come forward with a claim that the field that Shimon currently has is stolen from you, that's fine. But then I said, once you're signing on, once you're not a party, but once you're a witness for the transaction, you've lost any right to claim that this property belongs to you. Even as if you said, there's a particular Rashi. Even as so, the whole of the chasam, hold their shit in law is important. Because essentially, what the thing is like this: the act of signing on a document, or witnessing a document of sale, sale transaction, is effectively saying what? This field has nothing to do with it. You're giving up any rights to the field. So they will say fundamentals not basis. On the flip side, I saw similar affair. Sorry, on the flip side, I saw similar affair. So let's say look at this case. Look at Rashi. I saw a muksef bar similar affair. Shalom machal ruben zeh ha'oyer Allah. Ela li'ish affair. Ela moches sadam tzadzi. ומיצר לו 4 מצרי הסבא. חסף לו במצרים, מיצר פוני סדה שלי, ועשה סדה זיסני. So let's say, now watch this case. So let's say for a moment that Reuven now owns the disputed field, right? I'm sorry, Shimon, right? So Shimon owns the disputed field. So now, what does Shimon do? Shimon sells another piece of property, right? So let's say now, let's call the disputed field A. Field A, right? So same case, right? Reuven bought the field from, Shimon bought the field from Levi, right? Then there's Reuven. Reuven, of course, is claiming that Levi stole the field from him and now sold it to Reuven. Sold it to Shimon, one more time, I'm going to get this right. Right, so we'll say so again. Remember, Levi sells a field to Shimon, right? In the back of all of this, you have Reuven claiming that Levi really sold that field to him. And now, right, stole last night, right? Levi sells the field to Shimon. Good, beautiful. Reuven now is claiming that the field that Shimon bought from Levi was stolen from him by Levi. Okay, so that was case 1. And case 1 is where it turns out that Reuven himself is an aid on the bill of sale from Levi to Shimon. Okay, so now what do we do with that? So again, according to Admon, so the Chachamim say that's it. You've lost any claim. You signed on the shtar. You've lost any claim. Admon says no. There's still another claim. The claim is you make the claim. It's easier for me to get the field back from Shimon than it was from Levi. So case 2 is Reuven. So Shimon is selling the field. So let's call disputed field field A. Shimon is selling field B. Field B. Fine, no problem. So let's say often the way when you would sell a field, if there was a field that was next to other fields, the way you would identify the field that you were selling is by identifying the other fields all around it, right? I'm selling the field B that is bordered by fields A, D, E, in this case over here, Shimon is selling field B. But in the documents of sale, its reference is field B borders on my other field, field A. field A. So in this case, field A is being used as a demarcation point, as a border. So right, field A, the dispute was not being sold at all, but it's being used to identify field B, which is the transaction. So now Ruben is using field A, right? Sorry, thank you. Someone is using field A, field A as just to identify the border of the field that is being sold. Now, those says Ruben is signing on this document also. Ruben is signing on this document. So now, here's the shaila. Now, in this transaction, in this document, so when Shimon is selling field B, the selling field B is also what? So to speak, solidifying his ownership over field A, because he's using field A to identify one of the borders of field B. Ruben is claiming that this field A was originally his, he's signing on his document. So now boy says, now what's going to happen after this is over? So now Ruben is going to want to come back and say to Shimon, by the way, field A is mine. It was stolen from me by Levi, who subsequently says it to you. The Mishnah says no. I saw Simon, the author, he made a system. At the end of the day, even Admon agrees, which is interesting. Even Admon agrees in this case, that once Ruben signed on this type of star, it's used the contested field as a border for the field being sold. Everyone agrees that Ruben has relinquished any further rights to claim what the field is his. Okay, interesting. Let's go. I'm Rabbi. Okay, let's go back to that first case. Great. Let's go back to the first case. Let's say so. No, but the truth is, I realize that this we actually have to stay on target because the truth is, Tuesday, Wednesday, right? So the truth is, Tuesday and Wednesday's back in are a little bit, and Monday, a little bit long. So we got to stay, and we only have 45 minutes on Tuesday and Wednesday. So, but we're going to be fine. So let's say, so here we go. Let's say, so we can say this. I'm about advice. So now we're focusing on case one. So once again, let's just get back to case number one. Right? Shimon purchases a field from Levi. There's a document, right? On the document it says that Levi sold the field. Shimon, one of the witnesses is Reuben. Reuben then comes after the sale is complete, and Reuben comes to Shimon and says, Shimon, the field is mine, Levi stole it from me. What? Signed up the document. So again, Chachamim say, sorry, Reuben, you no longer have any claim because Halakha myself signed on the document. So you're a witness. You're done. Alman says, no, Reuben has a claim. I guess I signed the document in order to get it out of Levi's hands. Your hands shouldn't, because I felt I had a better chance with you of getting back my land. Fine. So now Abai says, Lo Shana Ella 8. That's only true. Like all of this is only true. So Halakha myself. Ruben's son is the Machlokas, is only if Ruben's son was a witness. About Dayan, lo Ruben as a son. This is fascinating. So let's say if, it's really incredible. So if Halacha Lamaisa, Ruben served as a Dayan, as a judge, everyone agrees that he distinguished between the fact, even though he was the judge over the Dayan. What is that mean? Why do you need a judge in this case? Look at Rashi about Dayan. Rubinstein, if we were raising the Kaino, the Mishpat Kim Stars, Shaidim Bain in Hidrak Sabladan, Badayanim Kosin Stara Dinan Nakala Kabana, Basidio Sadia Hasina Zaya Bashir. So watch this. Let's say again they come to basement, certified document. Kim Stars, spoken about certification of document. Also known again. What is Kim Stars? The danger of the document. See, on one end in halacha, document, right? You have a signed star, so that's incredible. The problem is somebody go ahead and forge, right? So you forge a star, sure. So there's a concept of star certification. We call it kiyum shtaris. What's the process of kiyum shtaris? You bring your star to basement. Right, the Beis takes a look at it. The Beis brings in testimony or brings in the witnesses, certify that is that is their signature. We write a little pen click, right? We write a little either on the document itself or on a text document, and done. The star is certified. So this is incredible. So Abai suggests like this. The Machlokes Almon and the Chachamim in the first case of the Mishnah is only where Reuben signed as a witness on the transaction. If he was a diamond on the basis that certified the document, that does not below his ability to later on claim that the field was sold to the government. Why, Rabbi Rothschild? This is actually fascinating. Telling Rabbi Chia, Ein ha'eidus basing al ashtar ela im kim tarol. Aval, on the base, Aval hadayonis osmin Aval kushavet tarol. We'll say absolutely incredible. When you witness a transaction, like when you sign as an aid, we'll say, what are you signing on? What are you signing on? You're signing on the validity of the transaction. Right? That's what you're signing on. That I witness this transaction. This transaction is binding, valid, and legal. When you're a dayan for kiyum shtaris, they're going to say, what are you certifying? What are you certifying? Signatures. You are not certifying the transaction. In fact, the dayan, sometimes like kiyum shtaris, the dayanim aren't even reading what's in the document. Like, because I'm not certifying the transaction. I have no idea about the transaction. Kiyum shtaris is there just simply to certify the signatures on the document themselves. But it has nothing to do with it. It's so fascinating. So fascinating. So you could have a situation of Kiyum shtaris, which makes sense, because otherwise, the Kiyum shtaris requires a whole certification of the transaction. But what's the point of the shtar? But what does the shtar do? The shtar, right, the edus on the shtar locks in the transaction. Kiyum shtar certifies the signature. So this is incredible. So we'll say in a case where Reuben wasn't dying for Kiyum shtar, so now let's play the sell. Right, so lady sells a field to Shimon, and they're about to drop a document, and now they want to bring the document to Beis for certification. Reuben is one of the dayanim on the Beis to certify. Right, Reuben's Beis certifies the documents, and then after it's certified, Reuben says to Shimon, by the way, the field is staying for me. Everyone agrees in that case, Reuben has a valid claim. We say Reuben has a valid claim. Obviously, saying something was stolen from you is not a claim. Right? I mean, it's a claim. What it means is Reuben now has the right to what? Pursue that claim. Right? So again, why? And everyone agrees in that case. Everyone agrees in that case. Why? Because Reuben's acting as a guy for Kiyum shtaris has nothing to do with the transaction. All Reuben was doing was just saying, oh yeah, the signatures, we can say, we can speak, you guys recognize the signatures, fantastic. Don't sign it up, right? And then we're done. Certified, we go. So everyone agrees in that case, so there's no way arose such thing to go ahead and pursue the stolen, by the stolen thing. The same thing I was going to say. Masha'in came, when he's a witness to the actual transaction, sale from Levi to Shimon. In that case, again, part of signing on a shtar is what? You are claiming the transaction itself is valid. When you say claiming the transaction is valid, you can't go ahead and now claim that same person is still for you. Admon says, yes, I can. The transaction was valid. In other words, yes, Levi sold to Shimon. So at the end of the day, it's my life. Good. So says the Gemara. But I saw a similar act. That's the next case the mission was. But I remember again. So same case, but let's say not that same case. In this case, Shimon the purchaser, or Shimon the purchase confessed the property, we'll call it parcel A. Shimon is selling parcel B and uses parcel A to identify the borders of parcel B. Reuben himself signs on that shtar as well, or not as well, but Reuben sells on that shtar. The Mishnah says everyone agrees that after he sells on that shtar, he no longer has the right to pursue any claims that the land is stolen. Parcel is stolen. That's only true ultimately again. Rashi said, Lo shana la'achad. Dafka nafak masnisin siman la'achad. Aval asah hamuchsak ba siman li'atzmo shaluben za'ora la'asvasa. Listen to this. That's only true when what? When Shimon is selling the parcel to someone else. What happens if Shimon is selling the parcel to Reuben himself? Shimon is selling parcel B to Reuben. And that happens to be in that sale, Shimon uses parcel A, which is the requested property, as a border identification. But ultimately, in that case, even though Reuben, right, no even as Reuben did not go ahead and lose out on his ability to reclaim parcel A. Why? The Amar, the say if I would not agree to this, the have a masbin le'nihili. And ultimately, again, Shimon would not sell me the property. In other words, I will say the concern over here is that if Shimon knows that Reuben is going to be claiming parcel A, he's going to be reticent to what? Sell him parcel B. So Shimon, Reuben wants to buy parcel B. If I lodge my complaint now, then I'm not going to get parcel B. And certainly, again, leaving aside parcel A. So the Gemara says, "My isla kalamina." So what could Reuben have done? He probably lemema moda. So maybe maybe what Reuben could have done is that before he purchases parcel B from Shimon, put aside the witness. Say, listen, I want to tell you guys, I'm purchasing parcel B from Shimon. In the transaction, Shimon is saying that parcel B, right, borders on Shimon's other parcel, parcel A. Guys, I just want to tell you, Ruben's saying this is like a sidebar. I'll tell you guys, parcel A is really bad also. Really bad also. He was still from him, not saying anything now. He's going to lock down this transaction. Maybe that's what we should say. Make him a dog, not fall. Right, let him go. The says, yeah, that'll work really well. Chavra is like, the Chavra is like. This is good. Your friend has a friend, and the friend of your friend has a friend. Which I will say is another way of saying, don't rely on anyone's confidentiality. Right? So the nice again, if Ruben says something, so to speak, in confidence to the witnesses, they're going to say something, and what's going to happen? It's going to cause the whole transaction about parcel to fall into jeopardy. Good. The Gemara says as follows. So Chav the Chav is like Ahu Dasa similar Achar. So what says now listen to this. In this case, so the case over here is so let's go back. So we'll say so this is just a unique case over here. So remember, let's go back. The Mishnah said that in a case where Reuben is now signed on a shtar, right, is a witness to a document where Shimon is selling parcel B to another party, and in parcel B he's using parcel A, the contested parcel, as one of the borders. And Reuben signs on that document. Reuben gives up his right to further to any more claim parcel A. That's only true. That now Abai gives a qualification. That's true if Shimon was selling it to another party. But if Shimon was selling it to Reuben himself, so Reuben doesn't object to the use of parcel A as a border, that's because Reuben doesn't want to call into jeopardy the whole transaction. Fine. So I go back to the original case. Who does us in the office? So let's go back to the Mishnah's original case. Right, so the Mishnah's original case, so Allah say now, so Reuben is an aid on the shtar where Shimon is selling parcel B using parcel A as a border. So what happens? Your error, the shuffle. So after the transaction happens, now what happens? So Reuben claims, by the way, parcel A is mine. Parcel A is mine. But what happened? Shuffle. Then he died. Reuben died. Right, so Reuben died. Mysterious process, right? Right. Reuben died after raising the objection to the ownership of parcel A. Okay. What happens? The Okim Apotron. They'll say, so now again, so after Reuben passed away, right? Either Reuben made provisions for this beforehand, or the Bezin appointed an apotropos. Now there's an executor of Reuben's estate. Okay, so Asa Apotropos coming to Abaye. So the apotropos came before Abaye. Amarle saw a similar. So now what happens? The apotropos is coming. Or why is he coming? The apotropos is saying, listen, before Reuben died, Reuben claimed that field A belonged to him. So the apotropos says, I am coming to follow up on that claim. I'm coming to follow up on that claim. Okay, so Abai says, listen, guys, there's no claim. It's an explicit Mishnah. Even as we already learned this case. Reuben signed onto this document where Shimon used field A as a border identification for field B. And the Mishnah says once you do that, you go ahead and you relinquish all of your rights. Nothing more to talk about. To which the apotropos says, you're right, but Amar Hava Avason Yasmikayim Avatayim Amar Elam Efarasisila. Very interesting. So let's say, so the apotropos says, if Reuben was still alive, what Reuben would say is, yes, I agree. I signed on a document where Reuben used field A as a border for field B. It's really the only thing I was agreeing to was that perhaps Shimon owns a narrow strip of field claim. A narrow strip of field claim. Maybe that's what he owned. That's what he owned. So we can also anyway. Shabir Ka'amat. So the truth is that's a good kind. Rabbi Yochanan in Kava Aman Kalan Akala Sisi Lecha Ne'aman. So we'll say it's actually very interesting. Very interesting. That the claim over here is that halacha l'maisa, right? That if I go ahead, right, Rabbi Yochanan says, let's say I sold you a field, right? The field is mine, and the only thing I sold you in that field was a narrow strip. Such a claim could actually be believed. So the Gemara is supposed to see what's happening over here. So in other words, Ruvain signed on this document that where Shimon was selling a field to another party, Shimon was selling field B, and field B was sold with a border identification of field A. Ruvain signed on it. After Ruvain signed on it, the transaction happened. Ruvain said, by the way, field A is mine. It was stolen from me by Levi. After that, Ruvain dies. Apotropos comes along and tries to sell up the affairs of the state. They come to Abaye, and the Apotropos, listen, Ruvain claimed the stolen field was his. Abaye says, that's fine, field A was his. Abaye says, that's fine, but it's a Mishnah. Right, Ruvain signed on that document. He signed that document using field A as a book. But it's a field B, he absolutely all rights to field. To which the Apotropos says, no, I absolutely was here with claims. All Shimon really owned in that field was just a narrow strip. That's what he was identifying as the border. To which Abaye says, that's the B'chaina. But ultimately again, you still should have to go ahead. So in other words, now Abaye says the Apotropos, even if that's a good claim, that's fine, but you still have to leave in Shimon's possession a narrow strip. So Abu Alay, which Chad B'tikos. So we'll say, here's the problem. On that narrow strip, there was a line of palm trees, made that narrow border strip pretty valuable. So the Gemara says. So I rather we have This is great. Yeah, it's good trouble by the way. Abdul says, Reuben was alive. He could claim, while it's true that I sold that border strip back to Shimon, I then subsequently purchased it. Abaye says, truth is, saying, good. Then Rabbi Yochanan, in time, the Amr Chazal, so let's say, ultimately, again, even with the researchers think you believe. And let's say, the reason that is because this is Rashi says, Pesha Asar, wa Pesha Hitya. The king said, there's a look at Rashi, Naaman, here's the case, just to get the case in its totality. Naaman, that Pesha Asar, Pesha Hitya, then the Akashish, Eden, Shaisa, Shalom, so I will say, the king said the field is where, remember, Shimon sold the field, maybe sold the field for Shimon. Reuven, and then again, it gets more complicated. So now what happens? So now you have Reuven, then you have Shimon, just bring it all together. Here we go. You have Levi selling the field to Shimon. Field A. Okay, fine. Now what happens? Shimon sells field B to another party. But in that transaction, he uses field A as a border identification. Reuven signs on that shtal, that bill of sale that Shimon makes to another party of field B. Afterwards, what happens? So Reuven says, field A is mine. It was stolen from me by Levi and was sold to you. So remember again, big halacha in the Mishnah is we don't believe Reuven. You sign on a document, we don't believe you. I will say, in this case, it's becoming a bit more complicated. In this case, what happens is, Reuven goes ahead and claims that they just don't. Not only that, Reuven witnesses. These Avis, that's only the blank for the He brings witnesses. Now I will say, after he goes in and brings witnesses, what happened? He dies. He died. Okay, now what happens? Apotropos comes to Abaye. Apotropos says, listen, I'm here to help on with this claim. Abaye says, there is no claim. It's a Mishnah. Reuven signs on the document. Apotropos says, but he has Avis. Abaye says, hold on a second. Essentially, the Avis is negated in the face of what? Reuven's signature. In other words, once Reuven signs on that document, he effectively signs away his rights. Here's the apotropos says, no. What you understand is he actually went ahead and sold back, right? He sold to Shimon a strip of land. A strip of land. Okay. So now what you're telling me is when Reuben signed in the document, he wasn't giving his rights to the rest of it. What was he acknowledging? That Shimon owns a strip of land of field A that borders on field B. But that in no way he's using his rights to the rest of field A. That's good. But Abai says, okay, that's fine, so you can pursue your claim on the rest of field A. But what? But you have to go ahead and at least leave in Shimon's possession what? The strip of land. To which, as a trope says, 1 second, there's more to the story. Reuben bought back the strip of land from Shimon. He bought it back. To which Abai says, which is very good, right? Because this is the Pasha, also Pasha, why? Because the only way we knew about the sale was house was through Reuben. Right? Right through Reuben. We didn't know about the sale. Without the sale, all you would have is what? Is Abe was saying that the mice of the field was stolen from Reuben. So now Reuben, so to speak, was is telling us that a sale happened. Get the strip. Now Reuben's further qualifying and telling us after the sale occurred, Reuben bought it back from Shimon. It's a parsha, also a parsha in which case Reuben slash the apotropos should be believed. It turns away that Reuben, it turns out that Reuben should really walk with the assuming he could prove his claim, that he should really be able to walk with the field in its entirety, including the strip of boundaries. Incredible. Rabbi is what's the takeaway from the story? Rabbi, I meant that both the apotropos, no he had this was the essence. Because the entire takeaway is you got to get an apotropos like this. Right? I say this is you gotta surround yourself with good people. Like this apotropos Rabbi says knew exactly what he was doing. Good. So we'll say so for our purposes, Allah my son. How do we possible? So we'll say this is a complicated case. It is a very complicated case. Remember again, we'll say what we can't essentially embed in this case is a couple of different cases, just because I'm just going to tell you quickly. Rambam Paskins, this is a Hilchos Kohen Hizniton, Eric Tes Zayin, Halachas Aleph and Beis. We're not going to have time for everything. I'm going to leave out this Kalam case and just going to give you the Mishnah. Here it is. Reuben Shemaka the Shimon Saga. Reuben sold the field to Shimon. But how you maybe that's this. Rambam changes this. I'm going to keep it like we have it. Right? So we'll say, so Levi sold the field to Shimon, and Reuben was one of the witnesses on the shide. And what happens? Subsequently, right? Reuben claims after the transaction occurs, Reuben claims that what? That Allah for the Maisa, Levi stole it from me, ain't Shimon. The Rambam passed me like the house. No. Even though I remember again, you're going to claim, yes, I signed on it because I wanted it to go from Levi to Shimon because I feel a better chance getting my field back from Shimon and from Levi. The Rambam says, case closed. Halach l'maisa, right? Halach l'maisa. There's absolutely nothing to talk about once you are party to the transaction. Right? Once you are a witness on that shtar, you have effectively ceded and stated any rights that you have to bring that field as well. However, the Rambam says that Reuben acted as a direct shtaris, he does not feel or see any future rights. Again, going back to the distinction of an aid certifies the transaction. There, when he certifies, signature. So it was like, Allah for myself, we don't trust like Albon in this mission, trust like that. There's more, much more. Again, Hilchos Kohen Hizniton, Perek Kazai, Halachos Aleph and Beis. After all of that, but that's the halacha. Good. Mishnah, quickly. Mishnah, halacha b'dinas hayam. The derech sadir. So it just gets better. So listen to this case. And also, by the way, you ask yourself, what does this have to do with Ksubas? So good. Right? That's answer number one. That's answer number one. So remember again, the reason, just so you know, in all seriousness, the reason why we're doing this is because remember, the way this parak started off, there was the rulings of Admo and Hanan. And remember again, it started off with a discussion about Mizonos. That's what Ksubas. Now I will say we're just going through all of their rulings. Watch, this is a great case. Misha, how about the Medina says, we'll say, watch this case. Reuben goes overseas. Now Reuben owns a field. Now we'll say, interestingly enough, the case over here, Reuben's field is landlocked, which means that the only way he was ever able to get into his field is how he had a right of way. He had a right of way with someone. So what happened? So Misha, so let's say, so now what's the problem? He comes back, he's been away for a while. He can't remember his right of way. Where is my right of way to get into my field? And of course, as one can imagine, none of the neighbors are being shortcoming. Right? No, because obviously no one wants to give up that. No one wants to give up that, right? So Admo Omer, Yelech Lo Kitzal. Admo says, look, since you have to use logic, figure out what is the shortest way to get into this field, and let's assume that was the previously established right of way. The Chum say no. Yifna Lo B'Derech Shamei Amana or Yifrach Ba'adir. You have a choice. Either go ahead and trade $1, whoever's willing to negotiate with you, or lost, or fly. Right? In other words, right, or fly. Figure out a way to fly. Right? So again, this is actually useful. Come say, listen, Ruben, you went overseas, you lost your information. The burden is on you. So pretty much, again, no one has to do anything to you. So you're going to have to figure out a way to negotiate the $1 right of pass. So my time is Rabbanon. Shabbat Rabbanon. So I understand. What's the logic of the Rabbanon? It's everyone's like, the reason why the Rabbanon's position doesn't seem to make sense is if there's one thing we know, it's that what? Reuven had a right of way. He had a right of way. Right? I'll tell you, but the right of way, even today, I know this the right of way agreements are like you would think should be the simplest part of a real estate transaction. It's incredible how complicated right of way agreements are. It's fascinating. In any event, so Gemara says as follows: I don't understand. Obviously, he has a right of way. This was his field. He used the field. He was getting in and out of the field, so there was a right of way agreement. So I'm going to say, listen, logically, he's going to take the easiest path. So just assume that's the path he has. What's logic of the rabbi, right? Watch this. Don't shoot me through us. I gave it away a little bit. I'm sorry. Shoot me through us. I gave it away. So this is a landlocked field. There's 4 different people. So we'll say, what's the problem? The problem is, if you can imagine that you is that everyone's just trying to away from the Kiddush, so beautiful. And then he goes to neighbor number 1. Was by the way from here? No. Like neighbor 2. No, not here either. 3, 4. So we'll say, the problem is each has the ability to deflect it to the other. So this is one of these interesting cases where we know right of way exists, but you can't figure out a way to enforce it against any one particular party. By time in the Admon. If that's the case, then again, why does Admon say that Reuben could seemingly seize the shortest right of way? Amarava, very quickly, Sha'arbal the Asamikach Arbal. So the Arbal the Asamikach had the Amalok Ligi the Matzimach. So let's listen to this. When you have 4 people who bought their own respective fields from 4 other people, or for that matter, 4 people who bought their fields from 1 person. Everyone agrees in that case, each party could deflect to someone else. Chiefly, because the Gemara says, so chiefly, here it is not like this, man. Let's do this. The Chad, the Asimita, Arba. Watch this. Let's say now all 4 fields, or 4 of the landlocked fields, because the landlocked fields are all owned by 1 person, right? So you've got Reuben in the middle, and all 4 of the surrounding fields are owned by 1 person. Who what? Bought it from 4 individual owners. So in this case over here, we'll call him Shimon. Shimon now owns the 4 fields which surround Reuben's field, but Shimon bought it from 4 independent people. Watch this. So Admon says, listen, Reuben can go to Shimon. You know what? You make it a right away. You can figure out what you own. I own it, so give it to me. Those limits. Rabbanon said this. Shimon can say like this. Don't shut up. You're going to be quiet. You know, if you make problems for me, my Jewish or my right, but I'm not Jewish for you. So this is Shimon can say to Reuben, here's the deal. If you want to negotiate, you negotiate. You're going to make problems. I'm going to return the land to the previous 4 owners. It's going to be owned by 4 independent people. Don't go on to those saying, Reuben will never be able to get right of way. Why? Because each of them will deflect each of the other. If you want to negotiate,
how you living, big man?
But if you're going to claim Magiali, right, something's owed to me, I'll simply go ahead and return the land. I'm going to be stuck forever. Incredible. So the Gemara says, so I'm sorry. Who Damalu? I was saying quickly. Finish up the. Who Damalu? A guy says, "Who Damalu? Dikla libras." Just listen to this. A guy, Ruben, is about to die. Right before he dies, he says, "I want my daughter to inherit the palm tree." He's giving a palm tree to his daughter. Azal Yasmi Plug Winifas saying, so Ruben dies, and the sons went ahead and divided up the estate, but didn't give the palm tree to his daughter. Rabbi Yosef Lememar, and you must listen. Rabbi Yosef wanted to say that I said, this is the Mishnah. Why? What could happen? The Lord wants to go ahead and come to collect the country, right? And each son could say what? Each one could say what? No, not from my portion, from his portion, from this horse, from his portion. I mean, it's not a good comparison. So let's listen to this. Here's the difference. So in the case of the right of way really only does exist on one field. When it comes to the daughter's right to a palm tree, that is a right that devolves upon all of their inheritance portions. So therefore, my takanasai, what should we do? What they should do is give her a palm tree, and then redivide the estate minus the palm tree. That's what should happen. Okay, we'll say very quickly. I'm sorry, just give me a little 1 more minute and we'll stop. Actually, I will say we'll stop go here for today. We'll just pick up with this very last piece of I tried. Okay, we'll say shkayach. Again, great week ahead of us. Emir Hashem, shkayach. All right, everyone, have a great day, everyone. All right, I will say good morning. Let us begin. What great is it was to enter into our last week of the Sefas Subas. I want to go ahead and begin by thanking all of our sponsors for this morning. To thank our Talmud sponsors for the month of Tishrei, to thank Dr. Linda Weinberg, Sarah and Ricky Kratz, Julia, Rena, and Eve, loving them for dedicating the short this month, loving memory of their husband, father, and leader, Dr. Paul Weinberg, parents Moshe Ben Abraham David. Thank Ayala and Sarah Steinberg for dedicating the shiur this month in exclusive of Ru Shaliba for Shulamis Bas Susha, and Anna Yudit Benzev, exclusive of all of our fields being established with Hashem. A week of learning sponsors. Avram Zeisman, invention of the art of his grandmother, of his grandfather, Abraham Ben Aaron, Tzvi and Shady Shear, in honor of Vicky Hiba, and Elliot Shmuel and Shira Pepper, in honor of Ari Lerner and all the bells for the shul. Beautiful, incredible. Let's like to thank our Daf Yomi sponsors for today. Alan and Andrea Stowis, in honor of the Bas Mitzvah of their granddaughter, Kayla Rosenblum, may she grow with Torah and mitzvahs in Moshnachas to her entire family and all of the Mitzvah. Beautiful announcement. We'll see with that, let us begin very exciting. First of all, very exciting Gemara in general, and also to recognize it. It's always beautiful when there's like this confluence of events. How it is that we're finishing the Sefer on Rosh Chodesh, so we're ending things, beginning things. closing out Chodesh Tishrei, beginning Cheshvan, and Yom Hashem is such excitement that we're in the Sefta. We'll say let's begin. Today's daf is Kuf Tes 109. We are picking up in Yom Hashem on the bottom of Kuf Tes in days 108b. 108b. We literally left off. We left off yesterday at the Mishnah. So the Mishnah says as follows: A posek ba'os the chosna. It's a very interesting case. Someone promises money to his son-in-law. An age-old story, right? So someone promises money to his son-in-law. Rabbi said, in this particular case, what's unfolding over here is like this. Essentially, we're talking about a dowry. So imagine for a moment that Reuben is marrying Rachel. Rachel's father promises Reuben some amount of money. And what happens? And then the father-in-law extends his foot. So I said, what does it mean extends his foot? So again, extends his foot means the father-in-law doesn't pay. So Rachel's father doesn't pay the dowry. Now look at actually just a moment. Ish she'enu chashta dvarav tol tit sha'al gabi ragli. The rest is interesting. This Talmudic expression of extending your foot means essentially, I'm giving you nothing, take the dirt that's on my shoe. Take the dirt. Now, in general, what this sounds like is the father-in-law is intentionally not giving his son-in-law the money. But the truth is, the case doesn't have to be set up that way. That's just the way that's what the Mishnah is saying. So Portugal is right over here. Take the dirt that's on my foot. I'm not giving you any money. The point over here is father-in-law promised money and now is not delivering. So I say now the problem we're in is that tradition has already taken place. So Reuben was already Mekadesh Rachel. The Shimon has not yet been done. Father-in-law indicates that whatever the situation is, he cannot, he will not pay the money. That's that. Rachel Papa confess. Patient, actually, Rosha. The Chachamim say, ultimately again, literally she has to sit until her hair grows gray, which means she's stuck. Rachel's stuck. That, in other words, at this point in time, the control is in Reuben's hands, and either he can make a choice to marry her, right? Or ultimately just wait and do nothing until her father pays her. And again, there was an agreement. That was made. Rachel's father is not honoring the agreement. So again, moving the law to a holding pattern of those father of these agreements. Adnan says, the third issue of marriage, she Rachel should say to Reuben, אני פסקתי לעצמי, אישב עד שתביא נפשי. So Adnan says like this. Rachel could say to Reuben, listen, I, Rachel, was going to promise you money. If I was going to promise you money, then you can hold it over my head. If you can hold it over my head, then you can essentially, hold me in this marriage until either I pay you or until I pay you. But again, Akshav, Sha'aba Pasach, marrying the Chol Lasses, Okinos, Okidon. She says, what do you want from me, my father? So hold me accountable, you're going to punish me for my father's actions. So Reuben, you can marry me, rightly soon. Or divorce me. So Rabbi says, Daniel says, I think Adnan is correct. So Rabbi says, fundamental method. Once again, just to reframe the case. So Rachel's going to get married to Reuben. Rachel's father promises Reuben $10,000. Right? That's the dunya, that's the dowry. Reuben does kiddushin. Now, father-in-law says, I'm not giving you, I can't give you, I won't give you, whatever it is. The point is, he's not giving. So now the Chachamim say Reuben has every right to essentially hold Rachel in this marriage until her father decides to pay. And ultimately he doesn't pay, so then Rachel's going to grow old in a state of kiddushin. Admon says that's not right. It's not right. Right? Ultimately, again, think about it, even if Chachamim are not necessarily saying it's right, the Chachamim are just saying it's legal. Because this is technically a legal recourse that he has to force his father-in-law's hand. So Rachel says that's so Admon says that Rachel can say to her husband, that's not right. I think that this is a legal duty. My father did. Why are you punishing me for the birth of my father? Listen, don't keep me in limbo. You can marry me or divorce me. Zakai, I think Allah follows Hannah. Let's go. So Maslisin blows the Aikana. That's the fact that you're the following time. As a rich time, we don't know about it. So passage is the sign of I'm not going to see that Yehuda. Then we have to look at Adon, Joseph starts the festival. The question was, however, holy Kisha Tomer Abba Pasak Alai, not Ani Yehover Lasses. So that's very interesting. A different case over here. In this place, I'm recording the same case. But in this case, Rabbi Yossi, Partner, and Yehuda posits that everyone agrees in a case where the father defaulted on the agreement he made that Ruvain can't hold Rachel hostage in this marriage. Now Rachel has every right to say, I didn't default. Either marry me or divorce me. But don't keep me in this state. Sa'ama Nahdi. So learn as a focus Hasamu and Achel. Ashakoske he alatzma. I will say in the Bryce's version, the right version, when the father defaulted, everyone agrees that women can hold Rachel as a fight. I just everyone is going to agree that on a conceptual level, a man should never take his wife in marriage. Right? That's never that Chazal want. Why is the historical creating the system of in a way which seems to give the husband much more power sometimes even absolute power? Anyway, that's a question. I have to ask Coach Mark about question after I'm running. And we all know we will come. Then we'll explain to us why the halacha sees the slowly to give the man the power. But again, this is a legal discussion. So legal discussions sometimes do not enter into arena of what is right. Right? We all know this. That we teach this to our kids. Just because something is mutter, right? Just because it's permissible does not mean it should be done. So again, we're talking about what's permissible. Right? So if I come and say again, it's permissible for him to use the marriage as leverage to go ahead and extract money from his father. It's legal. It's legal. Is it right? Is it right? It's not right. Of course it's not right. So it's just important to understand that. Which I know everyone does, but so it's just different. Like, guys that get older, especially, you know that even when everyone knows something, it's still important to say. And I will say, by the way, these things, you know, all of this person has to design a marriage, again, should never ever be used as again, should never be used as a reference to extract something from a husband. It's not like Chazal, it's not much better for you. It's not what Chazal wants. And the truth is, nothing would ever come supporting another human being, and nothing would ever choose by using a bracha as a means of expression. Okay, back to you know. Listen, so again, so the Maisa, Bryce has a different view on this, right? So in the Bryce's version, that Chachamim and Admon both agree that what? That Aleph and Maisa, where it was the father who made the financial arrangement with Ruvain, and that the father defaults, or almost in other words, again, default doesn't pay whatever it is. So everyone agrees, and the Mizrahi Yehuda, that Aleph and Maisa, Rachel says to Ruvain, you marry like this, but you cannot keep doing this in the first place. So what's the focus? What's my focus? I'll check Paskiti Alatzka. What happens if Rachel promised to Reuben money? Right, so before they do tradition, Rachel says to Reuben, listen, give me punishment, and if you're punishment, I'm going to give you $10,000. Okay, so now what happens? Reuben's going to punish Rachel, and then what happens? Rachel doesn't pay. Won't pay, can't pay, doesn't pay. So it says, now watch this. Shacham say to you, that I should have a Rosha. But Shacham said, listen, Rachel, so promise. Why would you make it? Even if that's the thing that you be suing with you, until you figure this out. So you can go into a holding pattern over here until you, Rachel, figure out how to satisfy the obligation you are giving. Adnan says, the Holy Shekomar, just listen to this, what it's like. Adnan says, so what could she say in this case? This is great. The Holy Shekomar, Kisura ani sha'adon no say. She says, no. When I said, I'm going to give you $10,000, I figured the same bank that has been bankrolling my life was told this point. Right? It's incredible. No credit limits, right? No pre-qualifications, nothing. I figured the same bank that was taking care of me my entire life is going to take care of me now. So she said, I No, I said that I was going to pay you. But again, automatically you see that it was my father who was going to go ahead and pay for this Nagina. The Aksha Shein Abenosim Alai, not an Yeholim Rasas, Okinos Okdor. So she says, what do you want from me? What do you want from me? I guess, in other words, what Rachel says, if I'm is, I'm not purposely being difficult over here. I never had the money to back up this practice, right? I never had the money to back up the practice. It was always going to be my father. Now my father doesn't want to pay. Okay, there's ultimately a message in this relationship. Either marry me or divorce me. So I will say, so I just want to point out everywhere, so the Gemara is now explaining that there's two versions of this machlokas. In our Mishnah's version, right? The machlokes case is where the father of the bride, the father of Rachel promised and then doesn't pay. Chachamim say, okay, Reuben can wait, Reuben can come, Reuben can go ahead and have it for the shver days up. Like Admon says, she could say to him, she's not my fault, she can divorce me or marry me, but don't try to keep me in this place. Like Grace in us says, no, in that case where the father defaults, everyone agrees that Rachel can tell Reuben, you divorce me or marry me. What's the machlokes case? Where Rachel's promising to them. So the Chachamim say, listen, Rachel, you made a promise. Make good on the promise. You don't make good on the promise. You're going to under obligation. You're holding pattern. Admin says, no. When Rachel says, I made the promise with my father, I'm denying my father. So ultimately, don't hold it against me. You can marry me or divorce me. Incredible. I'm going to go else. And then Gamliel says, and then we're saying the Bryce also, the Gamliel go, I mean, it's to the Admin. Again, in the Bryce, you have Gamliel. Shatana, so let's analyze this. When is this so? When is this so? Says the Gemara. Bigdola. The kind of perfect. I'll say when is all of this said? Right, exclusively is the Raisa. Like we came in the golf club. But with a Ketano, with a minor, we will force it. We will force it. So you know it says, spoken in the past. Force who? Force who to do what? He labeled the odds. If ultimately at the end of the day we're going to force the father to pay off, so they say, it makes much more sense to force the father in a piece of the Zola than it does to force it in a piece of the Ketano. Why? Because also, if we're talking about a case of the Ketano, promised money, right? Rachel's promised money to Ruben. That's the galactic weight of that promise. It's not there. That's what it kind of means. So if you're going to be talking about a case where you're forcing the father to pay out, it makes no sense to force the father to pay up and it's just really bowl of water made a commitment. So the Gemara says, you may want to wait for the virus. Ella Amarava forcing the foul. Now the Rabbi says, no. What it means is you force the husband to give it back. So it's like, I love how I said, I keep it in the time. Of the rich of the Ketana. And it's commitment of the Ketana. Ultimately, again, I'm not telling you. Therefore, I love the piece of the Ketana will force the husband to give it back. We'll see how that plays out in the Rambam. All these people know as much as this is. Let's finish this argument. We'll go back to the Rambam. So listen to this. So Amar Yitzchak ben Allah from Shulchan Aruch. Come up from Shulchan Aruch. So we'll say now we're going back to the Mishnah. Any time that you find that Rabbi Gamliel says, right? Any place where you find Rabbi Gamliel said halacha follows Admon, halacha kimosa. The halacha indeed follows. Arali Rabbi Nachman. Give me a good Raisa. Is that true? The guys are just in the Mishnah. In other words, now we're saying whenever Rabbi Gamliel says the halacha follows Admon, the halacha follows Admon. So is that true just in the Mishnah and the Brisa as well? Did I say just in the Mishnah? This is what I'm saying. I said any place means what? A Mishnah or a Brisa. Any time that the Gamliel says the halacha follows Admon, the halacha follows Admon. Incredible. I'm going to based on Shama, Aman, halacha, Yotze, right? Ultimately, and so this is now, let's share this again the Rabbi. In the two situations, ultimately again, where based on Shama Hanan Yotzebo, like the Yochanan ben Zakkai said that halacha follows Hanan, halacha follows Hanan. Shiva Dran Shama Admon in halacha Yotzebo, but ultimately again the 7 cases where Admon said the halacha, and the Gamliel said that the halacha like Admon, the halacha does not follow Admon. So that kind of what is it? Didn't know how to come out. Stay Dran Shama Hanan halacha Kimoso Yotzebo. There's a readings like this: the two halachas that Hanan brought down, and ultimately again, Yotzebo, those who classify like Hanan, the halacha follows them. Shivi Darnish Ana Admon, Ein Halacha Kimosa, the Lokiyotse goes, the 7 creatures that are brought up in the name of Admon, the Halacha neither follows Admon, nor like the ones who custom like Admon. I've honored this fact that Allah is Christia. Rabbim Shema Rabbi Ron asked if Admon Allah. We just said before that any time that the Rabbi says, I see the words of Admon to be correct, like the Halacha finds that we got,